Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into some fascinating ideas from filmmaker Max Joseph. You probably know him from Catfish, but we're looking at his thoughts on, well, happiness, creativity, and something he's really passionate about, books. Our mission, really, is to pull out the key insights for you from his unique way of looking at things. We think there are some genuinely surprising facts and definitely some practical takeaways here.
Yeah, it's interesting how he connects everything, from the deep down neurochemistry of what makes us feel good to like the survival of actual physical bookstores, and then even drills down into how you read and maybe surprisingly when it's okay to just stop reading a book. It's kind of holistic.
That really caught my attention, too. Okay, so let's jump in. Happiness. We usually hear about dopamine, serotonin, the quick hits, getting a notification, eating something sweet, that kind of stuff. But Joseph digs a bit deeper, doesn't he?
He really does. I mean, sure, dopamine and serotonin are part of the picture, but he highlights three others he thinks are crucial for that more lasting, profound happiness. There's oxytocin, that's the bonding, trust hormone. Then endocannabinoids, which our bodies actually make, giving that sort of calm, contentment feeling. And endorphins, the natural pain relief, mood boosts. But here's the really interesting bit, I think. He looks at philosophy, religion, and says the core message isn't really self-obsession. It's actually about turning outward, focusing on others, on community, shifting away from constant self-concern.
That's a big reframe. Moving past just like instant gratification for yourself. It really makes you think, doesn't it? So what does that mean for how you approach your own well-being if it's tied so much to others? And speaking of connection and maybe spaces that foster it, Joseph is huge on bookstores, physical bookstores. He even made a documentary about some incredible ones like Cook and Book in Brussels, Wild Place,
Yeah.
or Faulkner House down in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, amazing spots. But he also uncovered a pretty stark reality for them. Basically, what he found is that just selling books, it's rarely enough these days to really survive, to thrive. They often need multiple purposes. So they become like podcast studios or event spaces, cafes, community hubs, more than just a shop.
Right. Evolving to stay relevant, which kind of makes you think, what about other creative spaces, community spaces in your life? How could they serve more than one purpose? Now, Joseph doesn't just stick to the big picture. He gets practical, especially reading. I found this fascinating. He was really struck by that Tim Urban chart, the one showing how many books you might have left to read in your lifetime. Kind of sobering.
Oh, yeah, that apparently really hit him.
And it led him to totally rethink his daily routine. Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah, his routine is super specific now. He reads fiction in the morning. The idea is like easing into the day with imagination, getting away from the news cycle, that immediate stress. And then evenings are for nonfiction. That's when he tackles books for problem solving, personal growth, understanding things more analytically. It's very intentional.
And a key part of that, he really stresses this, is avoiding the phone first thing. He basically says starting the day scrolling, you're pretty much guaranteed to feel stressed, reactive, but starting with a book, it sets a completely different tone, calmer, more resilient, almost like protecting your headspace.
Totally. And that leads to another practical point, something lots of readers struggle with: guilt about not finishing books. He champions this rule, the 100 pages minus your age rule.
I like that.
Yeah. So the older you get, the less time you maybe feel you have to give a book that just isn't working for you. He sees quitting not as like being lazy, but as discipline, knowing when to cut your losses, move on to something that will resonate, especially with that finite reading time in mind.
That feels liberating, actually. But what about those really challenging books, the classics that maybe don't grab you right away? Does he talk about that?
He does, yeah, that's a fair point. He acknowledges that some books, especially classics, they often need a bit more effort or maybe some outside help, like a teacher explaining context or reading some analysis online. Their depth isn't always obvious on page one, so it's not about every book needing an instant spark. It's more about discerning, is this just not for me right now, or do I maybe need a key to unlock it?
Okay, that makes sense. Now, here's something I found really profound, the idea of rereading. He puts it so simply. Every reread is different because you are different. Just let that sink in for a moment.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It turns rereading from just revisiting a story into like a conversation with your past selves, with who you are now. He gives examples like maybe The Great Gatsby didn't hit you hard at 17, but you reread it later after you've experience more life, more complexity, and suddenly it just clicks. It resonates on a totally different level. Or books like, say, Robert Greene's Mastery. You could probably reread that every few years and get something completely new, depending on what you're working on, what challenges you're facing in your own life at that moment.
Yeah. The book stays the same, but you don't. It connects so directly to your own growth, your changing perspective. It shows knowledge isn't just static data, right? It lives and breathes with you. Okay, so finally, let's touch on his thoughts about creative work itself. This applies to writing, filmmaking, probably anything creative. What's his take on what makes something work?
Well, he talks about this tension, this balance between ambition and execution. He uses this great analogy. A creative work, like a book, should feel like the author is reaching for something just slightly beyond their easy grasp. If it feels too simple, too comfortable for the creator, it can be kind of flat, uninspired. But if they reach too far, try something way beyond their capabilities, the whole thing can just sort of collapse. So the magic, the energy, he says, is in that feeling of grasping, that little bit of stretch. That's where the dynamism is.
That's such a good way to put it. That tension, it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About your own stuff. Where could you maybe apply that idea?
Yeah.
Reaching just a little bit beyond what feels easy, whether it's a project or just learning something new.
Wow. So we've covered a lot of ground today digging into Max Joseph's world, from rethinking happiness as connection to seeing bookstores as these evolving hubs, getting disciplined about reading and even quitting, and understanding that creative sweet spot, that tension of reaching. Yeah, it's a rich set of ideas, and it
Right.
really hammers home that point about knowledge not being fixed. Like those books he talks about, the insights gain new layers as you change and grow, and kind of invites you to keep revisiting things, including your own ideas.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something for you to chew on. How could you use that idea of reaching slightly beyond your grasp this week? Maybe in a work project, a hobby, learning something, or maybe think about a book from your past, one that didn't quite land back then. Could it be time to revisit it now that you're a different person?